Roll call, please.
Ms. Albritton?
Aye.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes.
Ms. Foster?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Woolsey? Mr. Acker?
Yes. I need a motion to certify closed session that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from each meeting requirements by the Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting in which this certification applies. Only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Albritton?
Aye.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes.
Ms. Foster?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Woolsey?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes. I have two actions coming out of closed session. Ms. Bond?
Move that we exempt student A and B from Montgomery County Schools for religious purposes. Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Albritton?
Aye.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes.
Ms. Foster?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Woolsey?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes. Ms. Albritton?
Yes. I move that we exempt student C and D from Montgomery County Public Schools for religious purposes.
Roll call, please.
I need a second, please.
Second.
I'm sorry.
Second.
I heard a second. Thank you. Roll call.
Ms. Albritton?
Aye.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes.
Ms. Foster?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Woolsey?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes. Thank you. Dr. Lois Graham will now introduce our distinguished guests for this evening.
Oh, look at the pretty flowers.
At this time, the board likes to share honors, awards, and recognitions. If Michael Marcinelli will come forward, he is Supervisor of School Nutrition. He will present the first recognition, which is our Support Employee of the Year.
Members of the board, Ms. Superintendent, Mr. Ivers, thank you. I was given 3 minutes, although I could speak for hours. And I promised I would keep it within 3 minutes. It is an honor and a privilege to recognize Patricia Jordan Hollins as Support Staff Employee of the Year. Ms. Hollins not only makes extraordinary contributions daily in her role as field manager of school nutrition programs for Montgomery County, but she willingly shares her gifts, talents, keen eye, and expertise with others. Today's school nutrition business environment calls on mentors and leaders capable of working in concert with others, able to collaborate in creative endeavors, innovate and inspire and contribute without dominating any undertaking. It is this extraordinary skill that Pat brings to every project she undertakes, most recently the Food of the Month program. It is her extraordinary poise and style in contributing her best to all of her undertakings that creates an environment that draws the very best from all of her colleagues. Pat Hollins not only serves as field manager for school nutrition programs, she also serves at the local New River Valley School Nutrition Association board as Montgomery County's lead administrator, as well as the Montgomery County representative for the regional New River Valley Food Purchasing Co-op, which she was instrumental in developing. It is Ms. Hollins' contributions that have given life, breadth, and depth to the message and vision of every organization she gifts with her talents, including school nutrition programs. She develops content, designs student-driven, results-based data in concert with local dietitians and dietetic interns of both Virginia Polytechnic and Radford University. She is especially gifted at working with students of all ages, faculty, staff, and her administrative coworkers. She applies best practice business solutions, blending nutrition and food service expertise, technology, business savvy, along with her commitment to her own development. Pat has been employed with Montgomery County Public Schools in the School Nutrition Programs Department for more than 31 years. She possesses nationally recognized certifications in Healthy Edge and ServSafe. She is a longtime member of the local New River Valley School Nutrition Association, the School Nutrition Association of Virginia, as well as the National School Nutrition Association. It is the many unique skills, attention to detail, accuracy, collaboration, and her caring attitude towards students, coworkers, and administrators that makes Pat the ideal recipient of the Support Employee of the Year. Thank you. Pat. David. Pat is accompanied by her husband, David, who just retired as well. Come on up, David.
Oh, sweet.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, sweet.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to thank Michael because I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for him. He saw something in me and he pushed me to be the best that I could be. And I dearly love all of our staff and the children. And that's it. And I'm so proud to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, Rick Weaver, Supervisor of Career and Technical Education, will come forward and share our next recognition.
Good evening. I have several guests with me this evening, and I'd like to come forward. Everybody on the back pew, come on up, please. They're going to join me up here while I talk about why they're here, and then I will introduce them to you individually. This year, the Automotive Technology program at Christiansburg High School has successfully completed the process to achieve NATEF certification. This is the first time that we've attempted to achieve this certification for an automotive program in Montgomery County. The National Automotive Technician Foundation is a nonprofit organization that evaluates and certifies automotive training programs in secondary and post-secondary settings. They follow the National Institute of Automotive Service Excellence standards. I'm sure you've all seen the ASE, Automotive Certification, emblems on area garages, independent shops, and dealership shops. NATEF and ASE are one and the same. For a number of years, we've been offering ASE student certifications to our students in the automotive programs, but the program itself was not certified. So this is a big step. The certification process required us to do a self-evaluation of the program with the assistance of a local advisory committee made up of representatives from the area automotive repair industry. And then we had a review team take a look at what we had done and looked at the program in its entirety. They took a look at the curriculum, the quality of the instructors, the support businesses, and the division gave the program, and the tools and equipment on hand. And they went away at the end of that process and left us with a very complimentary report. They were pleased with what they saw, to the fact that the reviewer, who was the lead reviewer, who was a community college automotive technician, left with some ideals from our program that he wanted to implement it in his program at the community college level. So I was very pleased with the process, with the support we had from local businesses, and with the results. Tonight I'm going to introduce a group to you who all participated in the process, and some who could not be here with us tonight. We'll start with the two teachers, Mike Dickerson. Where are you, Mike? Mm-hmm. And Chad Birch. If you all will go over and meet the superintendent and the board chair, please. Mike has been in the automotive industry in this area for years. We were lucky when he decided to come to us and teach, and he knows everybody that's involved in the industry, bar none, and does a great job for us. We have, I think, one representative from the Duncan Automotive Network. Both Duncan Ford Lincoln and Duncan Honda, whom I'm told are really not the same business, but they are all, I think, part of that umbrella, assisted with this process. Representing Duncan Ford Lincoln tonight is Brent Brousseau. Brent is the service manager. He is always supportive of our program in a variety of ways, and he assisted us in having one of his technicians come spend the day with us when we were doing the review. His technician, Nathan Minnick, unfortunately hurt his back today and could not be here, but he was a member of our NATEF review team. The Duncan Honda representatives who could not be here tonight are Alan Carter, the service and parts manager, another member of the business community that's faithful to help us anytime we ask. And one of his technicians, Joey Gravely, served on our advisory committee and was instrumental in this process. From New River Nissan, Mike Fox told me he was dealing with some problems and probably could not be here tonight, unfortunately. Mike is another guy in the industry who is hugely supportive of us. He served on the program advisory committee, answered lots of questions for us, and was instrumental in helping us determine what tools we really needed to have in place before we went through the review. And from Sheeler Motor Mile, Jimmy Politis, to keep you from confusing him with his dad. Jimmy is another person in the industry who we call on quite often. He cannot be here tonight, but representing Sheelers are Rocky Fasano and Blair Hoke. Rocky is the service director and served as one of the NATEF review team members. And Jimmy, the service lane manager, was on the advisory committee for us. And Blair is Sheeler's marketing and public relations coordinator. And we have a couple of individuals who also helped. Vernon McDowell is the retired owner and technician from A&M Auto Repair, a business that no longer is in Christiansburg but was here for years. Vernon served on our NATEF review team. He was very helpful and he was unable to be here. And Marshall Linkus, retired instructor from CHS, helped us immensely, both when he was here and since he's retired. I want all these folks to know how much I and the superintendent and the board appreciate what they've done for us, and we're looking for many years of continued relationship with these individuals and businesses. Thank you. I'm sorry, I missed one. Eddie, I don't know how I skipped you. I walked right over it. He was the very first one, too. Eddie Walters is the manager from CarQuest, auto parts out at Midway. Eddie served on the advisory committee, another individual who helped us immensely. And he has a son at Auburn High School currently. Eddie, thank you for being here. Thank you, guys.
At this time, our board will take a 5-minute break in order to allow them a chance to congratulate the recipients of awards tonight.
At our regular scheduled meeting, and the school board sets aside 30 minutes for citizens to address the board with issues pertaining to public education in Montgomery County. Each speaker will be allotted 3 minutes to speak. The screens throughout the room and on the laptop will indicate when the speaker has 30 seconds remaining and when the 3 minutes has passed. And the first person who has signed up is Robbie Jones.
Good evening. I'm Robbie Jones. My address is 996 Cole Hollow Road, Christiansburg, Virginia. I'm here tonight speaking as an individual. I just wanted to ask you to study more the policy changes to the sick leave bank. I have been approached by several people that this could potentially affect. Right now, I believe you have the option of using your annual leave if you choose. The policy change will make it where it'll take all of your leave. this could be problematic if someone has a catastrophic illness and when they come back to work, they don't have that cushion of annual leave for follow-up doctor appointments and so forth. And, you know, things happen in life, like a sick child or something. You just don't have that cushion that you might need. This could affect, you know, people greatly that do fall into this category. And it is a small group of people that it will affect. I feel personally that if you're going to do something or make changes to the sick leave bank, and I know changes are coming, please try to do something or study doing something that will affect everyone, not just a small group of people. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the people who have signed up to speak. If there is anyone else out there who wishes to address the board, would you please come forward? Now, are you one speaker or two speakers? Two. Well, okay, then we'll take one at a time. Please state your name, address.
Mr. Ivers, Superintendent, members of the board, my name is Chris Michaud, and I'm a resident of Bland County. And the last time the school board met, the topic of non-resident students attending Montgomery County schools was addressed. And I'd like to speak to this for the remaining time that I have. Last year, my daughter, Anna, was a member of the Blacksburg High School student body, and we were residents of Montgomery County. She had an excellent school year. She finished the year on the AB honor roll. She was exempt from all of her final exams. She passed all her SOLs. Just a solid academic foundation that she's getting at Blacksburg High School. However, in May, we sold our house in Montgomery County and became residents of Bland County. My daughter has pre-registered for classes at Blacksburg High School, and it's with this in mind that I would respectfully ask the board to consider allowing Anna to continue her education at Blacksburg High School as a non-resident. I know this is an unusual request, although it's not unprecedented. I do know of one family that was from Giles County who 4 years ago were admitted non-resident status at Blacksburg High School. So again, I respectfully ask that you consider allowing students to continue their education in a school they are already enrolled in, as she would not be a transfer student, but one who had started something and wishes to continue in that positive vein. And that's all I have. I would like to ask my daughter Anna to come up and say a few words to you as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Anna Michaud. I am a student at Blacksburg High School. Since I came to BHS, I have made many new friends. I came from a class of only 7 and had many worries about fitting in and being accepted as a new student. As the first weeks went on, I soon realized I had nothing to worry about. My classmates welcomed me and shortly became some of my best friends. Along with new friends, I also have some new favorite classes, which include Small Animal Care, American Sign Language, and World History Honors. Small Animal Care continues with Vet Science, which I have chosen to continue for my sophomore year, along with American Sign Language Level 2 and World History 2 Honors. Miss Lineberry, the Small Animal Care and Vet Science teacher, has become my mom away from my mom. I feel like I can talk to her about anything. And Miss Batak, the American Sign Language teacher, the same. She is a great role model and is a mentor to me. I also enjoyed World History with Mr. Kraft. His class is informative yet fun. Coming from a school that only had cross country as a sport, it was fun to be able to join the tennis team. This was my first year on the tennis team, and the older team members were very helpful and super nice. They were supportive and accepting. I'm getting better at tennis and would love to be able to continue as a Blacksburg Bruins tennis player. I believe I have the opportunity to have a positive educational experience. Thank you for your time, and I respectfully ask for your consideration that I may continue to be a student at Blacksburg High School.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board? If not, public address is closed. Consent items. There's nothing to be pulled from consent agenda. Let me see. Is there any discussion regarding consent agenda? I had one, not a discussion, a comment. Kelly, you're going to a coal mine. That's really cool. And I wish I were going to be in town to chaperone that.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting. I'd love to be going to.
The personnel report. Do I have a motion to adopt the personnel report?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I have a little discussion that I want to put in the personnel report. Mr. McElendro, could I have you come to the podium just for a minute? Question. I worked in personnel for several years up in Fairfax County. And I just want to know if you're doing the same thing that we did up there. This was years ago, and maybe things have changed. Let's track a science teacher in the middle school, a fourth grade teacher, and an English teacher in the high school. The first question is, how many applications would you get for a fourth grade teacher?
Between 40 and 60.
What about a high school English?
High school English, probably about 20.
And fourth grade, and science teacher?
Science teachers
Middle
less,
school.
probably about 10 to 15.
Okay. And is there any way you can tell what religion, what race, what ethnic group, or what sex they are?
No, sir. No, the sex you can tell by the name, but other than that, yeah.
Okay.
And that's a possibility, you're right.
Yeah.
There's no definite.
Okay, so you've got the applicants, say 40 or 20 or 15. And then you go through those to see who's qualified, because sometimes all the applicants aren't really qualified.
That's correct.
What are the numbers on those? How many do you lose when you go through those?
You lose a handful on each because of certifications, typically, because of license certifications.
Somebody coming from out of state who's not certified, or?
Correct.
Okay. How many are interviewed?
Typically, 4 to 5 interviews for each of the openings.
How do you pick those?
Those are screened through the screening process, and qualified candidates rise to the top that have either experience or some kind of past history with working in that field.
Okay, is there any way you can identify the ones you want to interview as to race or religion or ethnic group?
No, sir. No, sir. That is not on the application at all. So there's no way to identify those individuals.
Excuse me, Mr. Ivers. Just for a point of order, I think we have a motion on the floor.
And I'm discussing the process.
Yes, he's discussing the motion, yeah.
I'm still talking to him. So this goes to the motion.
Yes.
Okay.
So if we're trying to hire minorities, would you say it's improbable, impossible to be able to identify any of them?
Yes, sir. It's unlikely that you can tell the race, ethnicity of a applicant by an application, unless you had some kind of prior knowledge of that applicant. That's the only way you could know.
Okay.
And that does happen from time to time. People know the applicants that are applying either through student teaching or acquaintances that they know. But for the most part, you do not know.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
That's all the questions I had. Is there any more discussion on this? All those in
Do-
favor?
oh,
I'm sorry.
I should have asked at the time. Do we, when someone does apply and we're not going to interview them, do we send them a note or let them know that they're not going to be interviewed?
After the posting is closed, we notify those individuals.
Okay, good. And then, I did hear somewhere along the line that we were interviewing before the posting was closed. Have you heard anything about that?
Yes, ma'am. There was one occasion where that occurred, and we've corrected that
Cool.
problem.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
The personnel report is approved.
May I recognize someone that you've just appointed?
Yes.
By your actions this evening, you've appointed a new assistant principal at Falling Branch Elementary, and she happens to be with us this evening. I'd like to have her stand and be recognized. Lynn Jacoman. Congratulations. Lynn actually holds a bachelor's in elementary ed, a master's degree in teaching, certification in administration and supervision through Radford University. She has spent 8 years in Montgomery County Public Schools, her most recent assignment being that of an instructional specialist. So we welcome you, Lynn, and we think we're going to keep you very busy this year. So welcome.
Do we have a motion to pay the bills?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. And now we move to the superintendent's reports. Ms. Blackburn.
We need to acknowledge receipt of the financial summary report.
I didn't hear you.
We need to acknowledge receipt of the financial summary report.
I move that we receive the financial summary
Oh, we did.
report.
Sorry. You're right, thank you.
I move we receive the financial summary report.
Second.
All those, I got a motion and a second. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Now we move on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Ivers. We're starting this evening with your policy updates. You have seen these policy updates before. They were presented previously as information on August the 6th. This evening, they are presented for action. The staff and I are available to answer any questions which you may have.
I have a question related to the one that the speaker mentioned earlier, the use of the sick leave bank and having to use all of your leave. I think that's pretty standard in industry, but just so I make sure I understand the wording here, basically you're saying before they tap into the sick leave bank, they have to exhaust all their leave.
That is correct.
I don't think that's that unusual because, you know, I know a lot of employers do the same thing because you're tapping into a donated bank. So I don't think that's that unusual. But I do understand where it could cause some issues when employees come back to work, but I think that is pretty standard.
It does align it with how you treat other employees who have exhausted leave. So you've been treating the sick leave bank group a little bit differently in that you've allowed them to keep, is it their annual leave, Joe? The annual leave, and not use that before they tap the sick leave bank. There are going to be probably some significant other changes that come forward with the sick leave bank because of the impact of the change in the health care law and the change in VRS and the change in all the leaves. So I recommend that this policy aligns the way we deal with employees who have access to sick leave bank. It aligns it with how we treat other employees.
My only concern here is the last part of that where it says the unpaid leave requires an employee to exhaust all of their leave. I understand if they're tapping into the sick bank that they should use all of their leave, but if an employee chooses to go on leave without pay and save some of their annual leave, why would we not allow them to do that?
We'll call the HR person.
I'm sorry, could you repeat
Yeah,
the question?
for example, I go out on sick leave, I'm not gonna tap into the bank, but I want to save 20 hours of my annual leave for when I return. So I wanna be on leave without pay during my absence, but save some of my annual leave until I return for future doctor's appointments or whatever.
Right.
What's the reason that we don't allow employees to do that?
Okay, there's two answers to that question. One is that, first of all, before they take any leave without pay, they would have to exhaust that annual leave, so they wouldn't be able to take the leave without pay until that was exhausted.
And that's just because of our policy.
That's correct.
Okay.
Now, the other side of that is once they go into the sick bank, they're still accruing time.
Right.
They're still accruing sick days and annual days. So when they return from that leave, they will have some days. Now, granted, they won't have as many as they had prior to going in, but they will have some days to do doctor's appointments or other things.
That's the only thing that I have a question with, because I know a lot of employers will allow them to carry a balance and go on leave without pay and keep that balance for when they return, but they will not allow them to tap into a bank.
Yes, ma'am.
So that would be the only part of that I would have an issue with.
Any other comments?
Yeah, okay. So you stated that we are treating employees who are part of the sick bank leave differently than our employees who are not. How
That is my understanding, yes.
How is that?
And that we allow them to keep their annual leave without using it, and they tap the sick leave bank. So they keep all of their annual leave days and use those days that have been donated by other employees.
Right, and that was the point of the sick leave bank, was to be able to support those folks by donating your time toward that. That was the whole point.
But generally, it was because generally the motivation for a sick leave bank access would be that the employee was going to have to go on leave without pay unless we had a way to help them, and the sick leave bank would help them. So they can use vacation days, which are annual leave days, the same as they use sick leave in this instance. So what it does is it preserves the days in the sick leave bank to a last resort. In other words, I could have 50 annual leave days, whatever the cap is, and I would not have to use any of them, and I could take days from the sick leave bank.
Right.
Which is not the way you would treat any other employee. You would, before they go on unpaid leave, they have to use all of their leave days.
Madam Superintendent, if I could, the other part of that is that employees that are not a part of the sick bank do not have that option. They have to exhaust all of their sick leave prior to taking any unpaid leave. So there's the discrepancy between the employees, is that if I'm not a member of the sick bank, I have to exhaust all mine. But because I'm a member of the sick bank, I don't have to exhaust all my sick time. My annual leave time prior to going to unpaid leave.
Which is family medical leave, right?
It could be, yes, ma'am. In most cases, it is. Right. But don't confuse family medical leave with the sick leave. They do run concurrently.
Right.
But we don't have to pay for sick days in all FMLA cases.
Right, it's unpaid leave.
Okay, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Why was this differentiation set up in the first place? Do you know?
I have no idea. I would suspect, Ms. Franklin may know the background and history, but it could have just been overlooked, and it could have been by intent.
Okay. I know the history. It was set up so that we could support employees who had catastrophic illnesses or accidents and had exhausted their vacation, basically. And other employees were allowed to donate time so that folks could share that. So
all this really does is change it so they really do have to exhaust all their leave before they may take from the sick leave bank.
okay.
So I don't know if you...
And they're still accruing annual. If
They're still
pulling from the
accruing
sick-
annual while they're out on sick leave bank days.
So when they come back, they still have,
Some,
because I've seen employees who exhaust everything, and then the FMLA runs out, which gives her that little cushion, and they have nothing, and then they end up without a job.
I understand. It's a
But-
dual-edged sword. You know, you have people who are giving days to the sick leave bank who may not have any vacation days themselves. And yet we're allowing a category of employee to preserve vacation and take from the sick leave that's been donated for catastrophic illnesses. I mean, you know, it was, we brought this to align it so that we were treating the various categories in the same way. So that's why it was brought, that was the rationale,
Okay, I understand.
nothing else.
Yeah, I understand that, but the rationale behind it was to help support folks who were at another level of need. I can understand if we modify this some so that folks have to use a portion of that time before they are able to, after they've tapped into or before they tap into the sick leave bank. This goes around with me. But I don't know that I would support that they have to use all of their time, because this was set up with the intent, this group of employees are going to be treated differently because of their condition that is going on, or the situation that's going on.
But this was which category of employee was that then? What it was set up for?
For any employee who had a catastrophic incident, that's what the sick leave bank was set up for, that other folks could donate their time toward that to help support their coworkers.
And these are all the employees. It affects all the employees equally.
No,
No.
you have
See,
to be a
that's what
member.
bothers me.
You have to be a member, but you can choose to or not choose to be.
Any other comments?
So any employee can choose to be a member.
Any
Yes.
employee may choose to be a member. You have to donate a day of sick leave every
Right.
time the bank goes below a certain number of days. So they are giving up their sick leave to support a common bank of days.
Just a question, because I'm not familiar with how things like that work, because I've never worked in a situation that's had it. If someone does have a catastrophic incident and they use their sick days and then they're pulling from the sick bank or the days off bank, all that's paid, right?
It's
And
all
then
paid.
If
yes.
they come back and have to have a day off, they can get it, it's just not paid, right?
It depends on whether they have accrued another day of sick leave or annual leave while they were on sick leave bank days, because while they're out on the bank days, they are earning leave. So, but yes, they could come back and take an unpaid leave day if they had no
Other
paid
choice.
leave of any kind available to them.
As it stands now.
Yes.
But I guess my question is, that would not put them in a category of job loss if they did so,
No,
unless it was
unless it
an
became
excessive
an
am-
excessive
right,
amount
of
or
problem.
prolonged, and then
and
they
at
could go
that
back
point,
and ask
a
for the sick
decision
leave.
needs to be made. Okay, gotcha.
Any other discussions on any of the policies?
I won't be supporting this because I have seen too many times employees, not only here, but in other situations where you get into the situation because you're ill or a family member is ill and you lose your job. And I don't want to do anything that's going to put someone in that situation if we can help it.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm coming
So I would be in favor of modifying it, but not that you had to use all those days.
Any other comments?
Was this set up though, so that way, say for instance, if there's two people that had a catastrophic incident, and if this person has days left and this person doesn't, and that person goes to the sick bank and uses those days with a cushion, and this person can't get those sick days, is that why that's, I mean, is that part of the essence of why that might not be a issue? You see where I'm coming from? Like, say, if you and I both are dealing with a cancer situation, and you've used all of your sick days, except for your cushion that you have left. Say you've left a week of days, but you go to the sick bank and you start using those days because policy allows it. Then I have cancer and there's no sick bank days left, and I can't use them because you've used them even though you've got your cushion. Is that?
No, we have
Help me understand that.
we have a cap. The sick leave bank will never be empty
Gotcha.
because every time it falls to a certain level, you assess people who belong to the sick leave bank another day. So they give you a day. So it never gets empty.
But put yourself in that situation where you're in the sick bank and you're getting requests to add days, and there's someone who has 50 days of annual leave over here who's drawing from the sick bank. That's the point they're trying to.
Well, could you modify it to where you have a certain amount of days only left?
That's what.
Yeah.
Right, that's what
I
I'm
mean,
saying.
I can see that, and I think that's not a good idea to be able to do that, but I can see where you're coming from to have a few days left, but I don't think you should be able to have tons.
Is there a process where if Drema and I are working in the same building and all of a sudden I fall ill, and I don't want you to fall ill, I'll fall ill, and I use up all my days, including my sick leave, my sick bank days. Is there a process where she, as well as other workmates of mine, can donate another day for me?
There is in your policy language some language on donating leave days. I don't remember the exact language. Joe, perhaps you do.
Yes, ma'am. It's any one employee can donate to another employee a maximum of 5 days for
Yeah.
10 days total, so they can get an additional 10 days.
Well, so if I'm ill and I've gone through, the way this is set up, I've gone through my vacation, my leave, and I'm into the sick bank, and I'm using up the sick bank that's allotted to me, you and Drema can donate days to me?
Yes, sir. If I'm a member of the sick
Yes.
bank, though,
Yeah.
and you're a member of the sick bank, I can donate 5 days to you because of your illness.
As can 20 other people?
No, sir.
There's a limit.
Limit of 10. You get a limit of 10. That's what's in the policy now. So you're allowed to have 2 people donate as many as 5 days. You could have 10 people donate 1 day apiece.
Okay.
But your maximum you're allowed to give is 5, and the maximum you're allowed to receive is 10.
Okay, so what would help me is this scenario. If you've used all of your sick days and you need to tap into the sick leave bank, but you have vacation time left, that you would have to use half of whatever you have left of vacation before you could tap into the sick leave bank.
It's your policy.
No, I'm just
Yes,
saying
ma'am.
that's would work for me.
No.
But that's going to carry a lot.
What is the cap on vacation days
It's 20 days.
per year?
Yes.
So at the end of the year, if you-
They either lose those days, they'll lose those days at the end of the year. And
20, or is that the cap?
I believe so.
I need to be absolutely certain.
I can check. I
Okay.
believe
Now,
that's
when
right.
you say 20, who's they?
Anybody
An
that
employee.
accrues
Any employee?
Right.
that accrues vacation days.
Right.
Wh-
But
Because
Oh,
that's only 12-month employees.
I'm thinking your number is low.
Is it
So
30?
let's not.
Okay,
Thank you very much. Yeah. So I think we should know how many days an
Yes, ma'am.
employee could have.
Right.
So that helps us make a decision.
So and depending on what time of year that something should happen, you could have the total amount, or you could have as many as 2 that you would have to use before you would go into the bank.
That's correct.
How many sick leave days can you accumulate?
There is no cap.
Okay, good, good.
And employees that transfer in are allowed to transfer in as many days as they had in a previous employment.
Ooh,
There's
that
no
can be,
cap there
that
either.
can be
But there
great.
is a cash-out cap.
There is a cash-out cap, yes.
Thank you.
So if I'm tapped in the bank, I'm accruing sick leave. You're not gonna take that away from me at any point, you know, because we're saying you can't have any leave to tap into the sick leave bank. Okay, I'm completely out of leave, now I'm in the sick leave bank, I start accruing again. You don't take that away from me when I come back to work.
We have those discussions with the employees while they're out on sick leave. We keep in contact with them. You have to keep in mind that the sick leave bank first gives 30 days and then an additional 30 days, so they could be out for 60 days using the sick leave bank. 60 work days.
Right.
Okay.
And
And we have that discussion with them while they're out about when they come back and what those days are going to be. So we stay in contact with the employee and let them know that.
How many days do we have now? 60?
A day, they earn a day a month or a day and a half a month, depending on longevity with the school system.
So that's 12 weeks
Yeah,
that we give them out of sick bank.
right.
12
So-
weeks rather than 60 work days.
So with your scenario, an employee is out for 30 days, then 30 more days. And if we say you have to exhaust everything before you can tap into that to get those extra 60 days, you may occur, what, about 3 days?
2 typically,
Two,
yes.
okay, 2 days. So if you're still not completely well and you still have to go for treatments and doctor's appointments, 2 days is not going to keep your job typically.
No, ma'am. And again, we have had people on unpaid leave that have come back. In other words, they've exhausted all their leave, they've exhausted all the sick leave, they've exhausted the sick bank, and we still keep them employed when they're able to return to work. Typically, in any school system, I haven't seen anybody let go for a legitimate medical reason. That was a teacher, 12-month contract person, unless they couldn't come back to work in the full duties that they were when they left. So, depending on the position, it could change. But typically, no, we work with the employees as much as we can to keep them on board.
Right. So our policies help us understand, and everyone understands exactly what's going to happen and can't happen, right? That's what the
We
policies
do
are for.
we do our best to communicate that, but that
Yes.
doesn't mean that everybody absolutely understands.
Right, but I say that in the sense that it keeps everything very clear.
Yes.
Whether you understand it or not, here it is in writing, this is how it happens. So my point is, rather than leaving it to discretion, let's have the policy reflect what we want it to be.
When I left the school system, I had 2 choices. I had over a year of sick leave, and I could have cashed it out for, I don't remember what, or I could have, what I did is I rolled it over into my retirement.
Yes.
So I picked up another year. Do we do that?
Yes, sir, and that's a very complicated formula, but yes, sir, that is still an option for employees to do. And there is a cap for the payout amount. I believe it's $5,000 for the cap for a payout for sick days for any one employee. The clarification, Ms. Blackburn, is it's a maximum of 2 years accumulated leave is what you have. So it depends on the level of service that you're in, the years of service that you're in. So it can be as 18 days or up to 36 days of vacation days that you could have on the books. And again, it depends on your level of service to the county.
Ms. Franklin, has this been cleared up for you, or are you still at a,
Oh, I'm still that the person would use at least half of their vacation is what it is. Their vacation time before they could tap into the bank. and not
Rather
have
than
to
all of it.
Rather than all of it.
life isn't fair. And whichever way you go, it's not going to be fair. You're looking at somebody who's worked hard to save their days, and all of a sudden now they're sick and they have to use them all. And you're looking at someone else who says, maybe I'll go in today, maybe I won't go in today. And we've seen them both.
Yes, sir.
And we know that they're both out there. And whichever way you go, this is not going to be fair to one or the other, because there's other people who are legitimately sick, and they use up all their sick leave, and they're legitimately sick. And they even use up their vacation and their annual, whatever it is they have, they lose it because they use it.
Yes, sir.
So I don't think whichever way you go is going to be fair to everybody. That's my opinion. Any other comments? Okay,
Wait a second.
Wait.
Joe.
So I could put a motion on the floor that,
well, we're looking for a motion.
that we changed it from using all of your, how's it worded? Vacation is what it is. Your leave, from having to use all of it to having to use half of it at the time of incidents.
It's annual leave, I
Annual
believe, is
leave,
the one
which
that's in question.
Okay.
May I make just one suggestion? If there are no issues with the other policies that are up for approval tonight, we could pull one, if that's the pleasure of the board and that's a motion made, and then talk about the one policy independently so that they're not all wrapped together in the same motion. It gets a little confusing on my end. Thanks.
Good idea.
So that you don't get confused, I'll make a motion that we pull this policy related to sick leave and the sick leave bank.
That's policy 5-7.5, is that correct?
Yep.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Well, I'm wondering too about the new policy with regard to use of Facebook.
We're talking about this one right now.
Or we're just talking about that part of the policy.
Any discussion on the motion?
So we're not approving the other,
Pardon me?
we're not approving the other policies?
Right.
No, we're just gonna pull this one, then we can go back and approve
Oh,
that one,
okay.
the others, how's that?
Robert's rules.
Again, I'll go back to what I stated before. Whichever way we go, it's going to be unfair to some people, so I can't vote for the motion.
Okay,
Any
I'll
more
call the question.
Any more Now we have to vote on that.
All right, so the motion on the floor
We have to vote on
is-
calling the question first.
But that was just pulling a policy
Right.
from the, okay.
Before we call the question, is there a second to calling the question?
Second.
All those in favor?
2/3.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now we can vote on the motion. Would you repeat the motion, please?
So the motion is not to approve the other policies, but only to pull this one.
No.
Just to pull this one
Pull
out.
5-7.5.
Right, just to pull this one out.
Who seconded?
Ms. Foster seconded?
Yeah.
Okay. All those in favor, let's raise our hands on this.
Were you gonna wait for her to read it?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought she'd read it.
Motion is just to pull the policy from the group of policies to be considered.
Correct,
You just voted on it.
Policy 5-7.
correct. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion to approve
Well,
the remaining policies presented to us.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
yes, I would like to know a little bit more about 5-1.6. This has to do with our staff, our people, on their personal at-home computers, or is this having to do with computer use on school property?
It would be any time, because the idea is that any employee and/or volunteer acting under the auspices of the school as a volunteer be aware that unacceptable activity with Facebook, other electronic media with a student is not acceptable.
And has our lawyer looked into that?
Yes, it has been fully reviewed and vetted with Brad and Nikki.
So that even though it's not on school property, even though it's their own computer, their own Facebook, it's okay? Okay.
The policy is okay, but
Yeah.
doing an inappropriate thing is not okay.
No, I know, yeah.
Okay.
Any other?
I would like to discuss the admissions policy as well, because I think that's something that's going to continue to haunt us if we don't put the correct wording in that policy.
It's on a separate agenda item this evening, the admissions policy,
But why is it, okay.
because it's the first time you've talked about it. All these are second reading, and the other one, the admissions policy, has not been on your agenda. It was in your unofficial discussion, but it was not on your agenda. So I put it on here at the direction of the board for you to talk about, not for you to take action on this evening.
Any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion to approve the rest of the policies as expected, and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Okay, so now I will go back to policy 575.5 and make the motion that it be adjusted, that you don't have to use all of your annual leave before tapping into the sick bank, that you use half of what you have at the time of incident.
Second.
Any discussion? We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor of the policy?
Yes. At the time of incident.
Adjust the revisions to policy 5-7.5 so that employees must use half of their accrued annual leave at the time of the incident before utilizing the sick leave bank.
Very
Does that
good.
reflect?
Yes, perfect.
Just a clarification, is that complicated at all to figure out what you mean by time of incident and when that would begin?
No, when you request it, then that's the time of incident. So if we need to change it to request, no, no.
And who was the second on that motion? Thank you very much.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Nay. We have a dead heat.
What, Joe?
Pardon me?
What did you say?
It's a 3-3 vote.
Yeah, so it doesn't pass?
Right.
Oh, you said defeated.
Pardon me?
You said defeated.
Doesn't carry.
That doesn't carry, right?
So, shall we move on to
Yes.
school crisis plans?
Please.
Okay. Next item this evening is school crisis plans. So that policy stands as it is currently written.
Not as revised.
Not as revised, as it is currently in your policy book. So perhaps under Old business at the end, there may be some direction from the board to bring it back as a standalone item or other action. The school crisis plans, we spoke about them last week. They've been available for your review for 2 weeks. They are presented this evening for your approval. Also, I would like to share with the board that law enforcement, the various law enforcement jurisdictions have a copy of the crisis plan for each school in their jurisdiction.
I move that we approve the crisis plan for 2013, 2014.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any questions? Any comments? Discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Thank you.
The next item is policy 7-2.2, which is admissions. Following the discussion at your last meeting, you asked that the policy regarding out-of-county admissions be placed on your agenda for additional review and discussion. I also provided you some information in the board update with things such as school utilization factors and enrollment trends. Currently, not based on your policy, but based on verbal directive from a previous board, we are not accepting out-of-county students other than those who are the children of our employees. Your policy allows that, but your verbal directive to a previous superintendent prohibited it. So it's here for you to discuss.
Any discussion?
One thing's for sure, we need to have a policy that reflects what we're doing. Having a policy and doing something different makes no sense to me, so we need to change one or the other.
Well, I make a motion that we, where it says, we of Montgomery County Board accept children from outside Montgomery County on as tuition-based provided students meet admission requirements and also are presently enrolled as a student of Montgomery County Schools or a child of Montgomery County staff member. That
Very
would
good.
pretty much
Very good.
that way, because I have to make this comment. I appreciate the honesty of the speakers tonight, because I think we do have a lot of residents that find grandmas and neighbors and things like that to use addresses, and I appreciate the honesty that you've come forth with. And a student that has all these requirements that our policy already asks for and has been a current enrolled student.
Yeah.
But she's not right now.
Yes.
Well, she has.
You're not enrolled if you don't have a
She is enrolled,
address in the county. I mean,
Exactly.
but she's
She's enrolled
She's registered.
at Blackburn.
She,
Registered.
she
She's
selected courses and went through the registration process
Thank you.
at Blacksburg High School.
How
But
do
she
you-
has not been rolled up for a 10th grade year until that decision is made. The school understands that she's not accepted as a student in Montgomery County for
So how was she allowed to register if she's not an active student?
because
of
they
the
do
circumstances?
registration, no, they do registration
does,
in
right.
March,
Takes place
you
before the
know,
school year's over.
April,
Yeah.
before the school year's out.
I think a student who's been in the system and will pay the fees should be allowed to just continue. I really do.
I have to say that I would not support that wording. The last 2 years, Montgomery County residents have been asked to increase their taxes because as a school system, we could not fund adequately our budget. And we continue to have this problem. We may have space, but that doesn't mean we have funds to pay for teachers in that space and materials in that space. And the tuition that we charge does not come near the cost per child in our school system. We're not allowed by the state to increase that charge to make it the same amount. We've got 2 brand new high schools going to be opened up, and people, if they want to come and be part of these high schools, they can live in Montgomery County, is how I feel.
Yeah, this discussion went on for several board meetings before we came to the verbal understanding about non-resident students. And I'm still okay with what we're doing. Because I agree with Ms. Woolsey, sorry. we could have students just flood because we have these wonderful new schools and they want to be a part of it, and then they get here and it's like, oh, I don't know if that I like it, then you have to readjust. And I just, no, I'm good with what we have, and we just maybe need to have the policy reflect our practice.
I was gonna say, if that's the case, then we need to say it, because we're more adept to have flooding with what we've got than.
Oh, yes, and I agree, we need to change the wording of the policy.
But you all are talking about flooding in from students that haven't been in the system. I'm talking
That's
about
kinda
people
why I was
who have
thinking
been in the system.
If you've chosen to leave Montgomery County, then you're not a citizen paying everything that you need to pay to help support the school system in Montgomery County. So I would ask that the superintendent take our policy and change it to reflect what our practice is, and then bring it back to the board.
Well, there's a problem that's looming in there like an elephant. The honesty of this family, the fact that this, the way you've written your motion, I think is excellent. And to address the fact that we need to do what we've been doing over the last several years indicates to me that we don't know what we've been doing over the last several years, because we admitted somebody 4 years ago. And I know that for a fact that happened. And their parents weren't school teachers here, and yet they came here. So if we're going to allow it for something that happened 4 or 5 years ago, we need to allow it today. And I think to address this policy, to address the motion, the way you have it written is perfect. And then I think we need to take a close look at this policy, because it's not fair to hurt one child and one family when our inconsistencies are what's at question. And that's what's at question right now.
I'm unaware of a student who was approved 4 years ago, so I cannot attest to that being fact. I can tell you that since March of 2010, we have not knowingly admitted a student who is out of county with other than employee children, and that as of last year, any student who had been grandfathered, who was already in place, because when the previous board directed the superintendent no more, they said we're going to grandfather every child who's already in the school system. And as of last year, class of 2013, all of those grandfathered children had graduated or left the school system. So I cannot say that there is inconsistent application of the policy on behalf of my staff or myself, because I'm unaware of the exception to which you are referring or the speaker referred.
And approximately how many applications do you think have been denied since 2010? I mean, just a rough estimate.
I couldn't make an estimate, but I can tell you that we're very upfront with people when they call, and because the application requires a $50 fee with it, we tell them that the current directive from the board is that we do not accept out of county other than those of employees. And so most people then don't do the application. There have been a few instances where somebody has been insistent and gone ahead and given us the check for $50 and required an official denial. But that's the exception and not the rule. So we've been,
So you have rejected some applications?
yes,
In that time
yes, we
period.
have.
And remember that's the policy as it's right now, that it goes to the administration for acceptance or rejection.
Right.
And if our attitude is that, well, there's a problem here, somewhere this got to be resolved, we got to get this elephant out of this room. And the honesty that's been set forward and the possible errors we have made, I think that if we were to accept Ms. Bond's motion, it still puts the onus back on the administration, which I believe where it belongs. I don't think it should be a board decision. I think it belongs with the administration to say yay or nay to individuals, because there may be extenuating circumstances that we don't know about. So,
But what if I'm that parent that turned in that $50 check and you denied my request, and now all of a sudden you're gonna change it?
so be it.
Again, we're gonna change it.
Well, there's always change, so
Well,
My-
and I'll go on record saying I'm most definitely agreeing upon the fact that I do believe people need to live in the county and support our county schools. And I completely concur and agree with all of that. But I also do believe that sometimes there are extenuating circumstances. We just finished speaking about sickness and things like that we can't control. I think students also fall into the same pot of, things like that. And I would hate to see if we've got, say, a senior or that moves out of county and they can't finish their senior year. That's the only reason why I put this on the table for that type incident.
And the real elephant in the room is that, I would like to be able to charge a student and family full tuition. But as I was talking with Ms. Blackburn today, we can't charge a student and family for our debt.
And that's
The
what this
state
comes
doesn't,
down to.
the Commonwealth doesn't allow it. So I think if we charge tuition, however.
We do.
I know. Unfortunately, we can't cover our whole.
Plus it's gone up.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. But when I was talking with Ms. Blackburn today, we can't charge for the debt that we're paying. That's a Commonwealth decision, not ours. But I still think someone should be allowed to finish if he or she has started in our system.
And we addressed that, just as the superintendent stated, that those children were grandfathered in, and now they've graduated. And the actions that we took then was only children of employees would be admitted to Montgomery County Schools if they live out of the county.
So it's not like this policy or this manner has changed in the last year.
Right.
It's
And
been
there
going
was
for a while.
much discussion, believe me, round and round, meeting after meeting.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Could you repeat the motion, please?
Adjust policy 7-2.2 to include language for students currently enrolled in the school.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion,
There was
please?
no second to the motion that I heard.
I'm sorry?
I did not hear a second to the motion
Did-
that was made.
Ms. Bond, did you want
There
to?
was a second.
Well, no, I can't remember, but I also had added that a child of Montgomery County staff member piggybacked on the
Wait.
bottom of that.
Did you mean enrolled or registered?
Well, I used the word enrolled, but it could be registered,
Registered.
whichever is
Yeah,
acceptable.
yeah,
I'm-
I would amend it to,
Are you-
Okay, I
Did you
make
get
a
a
motion
second?
that it's
Regis-
registered, not enrolled.
and I would second the motion.
Yeah. Ms. Albritton seconded.
Adjust policy 7-2.2 to include language for students currently registered in the school division and children of school division employees.
Can we have a roll call vote on this?
Okay.
Okay, let's do that.
Ms. Albritton?
Aye.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Foster?
No.
Ms. Franklin?
No.
Ms. Woolsey?
No.
Mr. Ivers?
Yes.
Motion fails.
Unbelievable.
A bad night to have an even number of board members.
Yes, lovely Christian perspective.
So I'll make a motion now that we ask the superintendent to align our policy with our actions. So that would be policy 7-2.2 with our actions.
I'd like to second that.
Ms. Franklin, may I ask, I'm easily confused as we've already established. Would you be okay with our current
That's fine.
protocols, our current action?
That's fine.
Because there's confusion about what action to take. I want to make
That's
sure.
fine.
And Ms. Woolsey, you were the second for that?
Yes.
Could you repeat that, please, one more time, Ms. Franklin?
I'll ask Ms.
Ask the superintendent to align policy 7-2.2 with the school division's current actions.
With the school division's current actions.
Board's current.
Protocol.
The division takes the action, not the board.
Okay.
I'm happy to, whatever Ms. Franklin would like the motion to say.
What you have is absolutely wonderful.
We pray that your
And
grandchild
what
never
this
moves
will
out
do
of
is
Montgomery
bring
County.
back.
If they do, they'll go to another district.
That's right, they will.
Is what this action will do.
Is there a second?
They will.
Yes.
Yes, Ms. Wincy provided the second to that motion.
Okay, I'm confused. What is it exactly you're asking for?
That
Without-
our policy reflect our actions. That our policy reflect our actions, which is only to accept students whose parents, students who live out of the county, whose parents work for the district. Jeez, you're asking a lot tonight. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed?
No.
No? Well, we may have to take a roll call vote on that.
No,
You're 3-3.
It was clear.
3 and 3?
Was it 3-3?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
A part of the reason why I can't accept that motion is because 4 years, when we did have the family that worked for Montgomery County Schools, that they were honest in saying, we moved to jobs because we couldn't afford Montgomery County's taxes. So, I mean, to me, it's the same thing. If we're allowing them to come, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but that means that that's the exact reason why we're saying people need to live in Montgomery County, pay the taxes to help support the school system, not just pay a flat fee that doesn't cover what it costs to educate a child in Montgomery County, or pay for the buildings.
I completely understand, but isn't that kind of like a double standard there? If I understand they're our employees, but they still moved out of the county, and we're saying it's okay for their students to come in?
Because they're employees.
But I mean, you see where I'm coming from.
It's one of those perks of being an employee in Montgomery
There's few
County.
perks.
Yeah, there's very few, yeah.
And they still have to pay some tuition.
Ms. Blackburn, do you know where we stand on this now?
Yes, I know exactly where you stand.
Okay.
You're better than me.
Yes. Could you,
deadlock.
Oh,
could
it's
you
very
help,
clear.
could you help
Yes.
the board by telling us
Clear.
You
where we
have,
stand?
Very
you have
clear.
a policy which says you may admit out-of-county students under the procedures that are outlined and that I placed in your board update.
In 7.2-2.2.
That is correct.
Correct.
However, you have a directive from a previous board to a superintendent, which has continued to be followed under the current superintendent, which says, do not let any more out-of-county students in other than those of current employees. And that's the policy that you have. So it's in conflict. I understand that of the 6 board members that we have this evening, there is an even split between those who would like some modification of the policy and those who would like to maintain the policy as it is currently being administered. And it's currently being administered by not following what your policy says. So I understand completely.
Well, I don't, and I need clarification on this. This thing is acting up and it's causing me problems in my ear, I'm sorry. The motion that Ms. Bond made was defeated.
Correct.
The motion that Ms. Franklin made, which indicated that we keep the policy the way it is,
No,
No.
that we change the policy to reflect our actions. which is only to admit students of employees.
Okay, and that was defeated.
Right. So we're back to where we were.
So, okay. So we're at a point now where we're going on a directive that was made back in 2005 or 6 or 7?
You were here.
I don't
You were
believe I
here.
was.
You were, yes, you were part of it. Yes. Yes, you were here, part of the discussion. You, Jamie, myself. Yep,
I remember it
you were
well.
here. You were here.
Okay.
And
Your
with
memory's
regard
better
to the
than mine.
fact that I do think something needs to be changed with the policy. I just had a problem with one not doing with the other because I think they're both, but I can see the other side of the fact that, like you said, that's kind of a perk of a Montgomery County Public Schools staff member. I see that. I just don't think it's completely right.
Well, your policy, as it's currently written, would allow staff and/or superintendent to make those decisions on the basis of the best information available. But the directive from the past board removes that prerogative from staff and superintendent. So you could approach it in a number of ways. You know, number one, you could say, we are prepared to allow this to happen based on staff and/or superintendent exercising judgment on the basis of capacity, on the basis of future expected growth in the community, on the basis of extenuating circumstances, which your policy would allow, the way it's written right now. Or you could, the second thing you could do is to tell me to bring your policy into conformity with your directive. So it's a choice, okay?
Yeah, black and white.
I really
this one or
think
that one.
leaving it to administration and leaving it to you all the way it is now makes sense.
I make a motion, we leave the policy alone as it is
Second.
and let it stand.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Give me 1 minute to read back over it again, please.
Okay. What in essence it says is that the administration makes the decisions
Right.
on students wanting to pay tuition to come to our schools.
And
Okay.
Ms. Blackburn, do you have the staff to take care of this if you get 200 applications in the spring?
I guess I'll manage to have the staff to take care of it, you know, because transfers require time,
Exactly.
you know, and the other piece of it is that it would also require the backing of the board in terms of allowing staff to use the facts that are available to them to
Right.
make a decision and then honor the staff's decision.
Abs-
Because otherwise, you're gonna have a line
A
in
line
here
of-
appealing every
exactly.
decision that's made. So it's, you know, it's,
And our current projections for the next 5 or 6 years were not done with knowing we have new high schools in our system and looking at
But
that
just-
information.
It's the same kind of thing as hiring. I mean, we don't come after you when you're doing hiring. We wouldn't, to me, that, it would be the same kind of thing.
well, I'm just pointing out that that is one of the
Yeah.
things that happens when you say you want your staff and
Sure.
superintendent to make the decision.
Yeah.
It requires, you know, a level of support
Right.
for
I
the
agree.
fact that we make a decision on the basis of the facts that are available.
Then what I might suggest is if, you know, there's a thought that we might go with this policy, that maybe we take a look at the application fee. If it's gonna create an administrative burden to process these applications, do we change that fee from 50 to 150 or
Right.
something like that to
Good
help
thought.
cover the administrative time to process these applications?
Good
And,
thought.
and then we would be automatically eliminating students who would not be able to barely pay the 50
Right.
to say, no, forget it, you can't come to Montgomery County Schools because you can't pay for it. Just the application alone.
Well,
Good point.
they're not paying.
Well,
For the
we don't
buildings,
want
though.
them anyway, is what we're
And
saying. I
that's why
mean,
we need
yeah.
to change the policy.
I mean,
Is
I move the
there a motion
Somehow.
Yes.
And there's, okay, I'm sorry.
There is.
Okay.
Ms. Bond, I'm hoping that I captured what you're looking for.
Okay, the motion and a second. Do we need to read the motion again? Is everyone set with it?
I hope I captured what she was looking for. Reaffirm policy 7-2.2, rescinding the current directive for the administration to only allow students and employees to attend as out-of-zone transfer students.
In other words, it's the way the motion, it's the way the policy is written now.
Reaffirming the policy and
Right.
in writing will
Okay.
rescind the
Right.
current
Directive.
from the
And
former school.
let's do roll call
Right.
again.
Yes. I didn't catch the second. Who was the second one?
I say.
Thank you very much, Ms. Albritton. Ms. Albritton?
Aye.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Foster?
No.
Ms. Franklin?
No.
Ms. Woolsey?
No.
Mr. Ivers?
Yes.
I give up.
I suggest that we
As
move on to
Christians,
the
we can-
facilities update, and at the
Yep.
request of the board, I'm happy to bring the policy back. I'm also happy to bring you my recommendation, if you would like.
Awesome. Why not?
Because then you can vote it up
Welcome
or
to
down.
stranger. Yeah, right.
That would be lovely.
Okay.
And hopefully
Let me-
Brenda will be here, so we'll have.
We've beaten this horse pretty badly.
Yeah, and let's move on. You ready? Facilities update. Mr. Baronato, we're going to do a brief facilities update, and it's getting briefer by the moment. And
How lovely.
Dan will tell you kind of what's been going on with general maintenance and facilities items, and then Dr. Staten is going to add a few words about the move-in schedule. Dan?
Good evening.
Hey,
These are projects you've seen before. A number of them are complete or almost complete. The mobile unit is now moved to Falling Branch and will be in use at the beginning of the year. The 2 roofs that we have, the membrane's complete. We just have to finish the metal coping on the parapet, and that will be completed in the next couple weeks, hopefully this week. The wood floor that was damaged by the sprinkler at BMS, that is complete and back together. We also refinished the gym floor at CHS, and we've completed the move-outs, and Dr. Staten will, at the end of this presentation, talk about the move-ins. Some of our PTA booster projects, not too much has happened with those. We did have VDOT and the town of Blacksburg repave some bus loops this summer.
At no cost to us.
At their cost, no cost to us.
Okay.
This is an update of the schools that we're out of now, the excess facilities. Blacksburg Middle School, the supervisors plan to begin discussions with the town in September again. Former Elliston School was sold, and the county received a net $208,000 at closing. Former Price's Fork Elementary School, they received a proposal, and they're negotiating that with the prospective purchaser, and they're still in negotiations. Nothing new on the former Blacksburg High School or Shawsville Elementary School. The central office, 200 Junkin Street, the county has taken that over, the deed, and they're developing a plan for marketing. The top capital maintenance projects, the first 2 are related to security, and we've identified Falling Branch as the school we will prototype for security improvements, and these are in process. Detailed information was provided by Ms. Blackburn in your last board update. The wall repair at CHS is complete. The ladders at the 3 schools, safety ladders, are complete. The auditorium seats are on order. They're expected to come in at the second half of September, and the old ones will then be taken out, and the replacement will be completed by about October 1st.
And this is your $400,000 from the supervisors. This is how it's being expended at the moment.
What happens to the old auditorium seating?
Goes in a dumpster somewhere.
Not all of them are horrible.
Exactly. Think
I
we should
mean-
sell some of
You
them? then?
replace
Yeah.
one, you gotta replace them
Yeah.
all.
Auction.
Oh, no, and I'm more than happy. I want them all replaced, absolutely,
I
but
don't, I
I'm
don't
just
know the
thinking-
detail what is in that
contract.
contract, whether the contractor is supposed to take them away or not.
But I didn't know
I'll
if they
find
sell
out.
them as like
Yeah.
metal or, okay. Just curious. Because I get asked those questions, you
Sure.
know?
Yeah.
I mean, people want to know.
Right.
I mean, the Auburn area, when it was, I got 1,000, I'm not kidding, but, you know, all kinds of people want to know what's happening with the old stuff and why is it happening the way it is, and it's easier if I can give them an answer.
Right.
Yeah,
I
I
can
agree
find
with
out.
We'll
Normally,
check that
we
out.
would have the contractor be responsible for removing them, and they're good at making money, and if they can make money from it, they do. And of course, that is accounted for in their bid.
And that's kind of
so-
was, exactly, that's the answer I was looking for.
Okay. And Dr. Staton will give the move-in update.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Tonight, I'll come back before you just to give you an update since August 6th update on the move-in, starting first with the Auburn High School move-in. Everything is going as well as can be expected. We are moving along very well. You can see that the smart board and televisions have been updated, have been installed since last week. As far as Blacksburg High School is concerned, we're continuing to move along as expected. Want to highlight for you that the movements for the Media Center, everything has been put in place for both Blacksburg High School and the middle school, and old Christiansburg Middle School has been emptied as far as the media stuff is concerned. So everything is tracking along, and we expect it to open on time as we've reported so far. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Occupancy of Blacksburg High School is still scheduled as it has
Yes,
been?
yes, sir. We've received both the final occupancy for Auburn High School, and we've also received the temporary occupancy, certificate of occupancy for Blacksburg High School.
Why temporary?
Because that's the way the Blacksburg Township wanted to issue the occupancy as we briefed the last time. We will correct those punch list items that they find as time goes on, and they will eventually, within the 2 months time frame after the school is open, that they will come back and issue the final occupancy.
It's just a different way of doing business. Basically, they have given us the building, but they don't want to put the final CO on it until everything is in place, every piece of furniture and that kind of thing. And Curtis is up to bat next, and he can probably add a little bit to that also.
That's right.
Okay?
It doesn't have anything to do with prices for transportation?
No,
No, ma'am.
not
No,
a
ma'am.
thing.
Okay. I assumed it didn't, but I just wanted to publicly state that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, this was a part of the, what process did we use? PPEA, that it would
Yeah.
come in stages at Blacksburg, just so we could get in the building.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so we're moving now from the facilities update to the capital projects update. And, you know, Curtis has some great stuff to share with us this evening, and, you know, things are going well.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening.
Hello.
You stole part of my thunder, but I'll go through and reiterate. Some good news. As you were discussing a minute ago, we did, for Auburn High School, get a temporary certificate of occupancy about a month ago, which allowed the administration to move in the building and the furniture. Since that time, last week, we actually got the final certificate of occupancy to let the rest of the folks, the public, in the building when the school system lets them. And then they will come back and they will bless the building after it's operational as well. Blacksburg High School also got a temporary certificate of occupancy last week on the 14th, and which allowed the teachers and staff to move in and to get set up for students to come in on school to start. And we expect, we got our fingers crossed, that the town will give us a certificate of occupancy to allow the public in by this Friday. And that'll be followed by the finishing of the site work we hope to have by the end of the month. Any questions on certificates. We got lots of paperwork flying.
What could happen that the town of Blacksburg would not give us that occupancy?
They have a list of just certain items that they want to see done by Friday, and we're working towards that, and there shouldn't be a problem in meeting that, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank
A
you.
question
We
about,
feel-
oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Just have a question about the first week of school and transportation out in the Blacksburg area. And do we work with the town of Blacksburg and the police and like that road and just logistics?
You're asking the wrong person on
Yeah,
that,
I
right?
didn't know.
We will definitely work with them. Dan, no need to come to the microphone. We will definitely take care of that. And I'm going to BHS and BMS tomorrow. That's where I start my day.
Thank you.
Some new photos. Start with Auburn High School. There's a picture of the main entrance of the school. The other picture is the bus drop-off area, which is on the other side of the school. As you can see, coming next to where the cafeteria is. Moving inside, picture on your left is the dining area, the cafeteria, the new shiny floor. And also there's the new gym with bleachers and wall padding up. Moving across town to Blacksburg High School, picture of the entrance and the classroom wing of the building. You can see the parking lot is paved and striped and the lights are in, and the landscaping as well. And then there's a picture of, that's actually on the second floor of the classroom wing, showing some of the finishes in the building.
May I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
These pictures are a little bit, the picture on the left, to the left of that is the roads that come into the, and then there's that long road that runs along, and they're gonna be in better shape than they are now?
Yes. All
Because
that,
they're in rough shape right now.
you're talking about the road itself?
Yeah,
Yeah, all the site work we're shooting to have it done by the end of the month.
okay.
Yeah. Inside, there's a picture of a classroom in the CTE area of the building. Smart boards in, tack boards, whiteboards, furniture. And then there's a picture of the gym in Blacksburg. All shiny. Updates on the to-be-new Auburn Middle School. Demolition has started. If you drove down Route 8, you can see it. This is a shot from Route 8, so you can see one of the classroom wings of the old Auburn High School has been demolished in the front. You move to the back of the school. This was used to be the kitchen area. It's been demolished in the back. And then also a picture of the inside where they've started demolition on the interior and abated some of the asbestos and hazardous materials that were in the building. That is my update. Any more questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Curtis. Appreciate it. So the next item for this evening is an information item. It's actually your year-end summary budget information. There are two attachments that give you the specificity to this item. Let me get this to work. The first is the summary sheet of the fiscal year closeout. I would draw your attention to page 2, which is really what you're going to be dealing with. There's approximately $1.5 million in projected carryover. Of that, there's $990,000 that is encumbered with purchase orders. There's federal money Medicaid carryover of $101,000. There's a balance from your $400,000, the capital spending that we just talked with you about, that's not all been expended. So what that leaves is $239,144.94 in the $93 million budget that was unspent and unencumbered and uncommitted as of this time. And I have provided you with a list of things that I would recommend the board consider for the use of those funds. So tonight it's information, but we will ultimately make a request to the supervisors for return of these funds. And when we make that request, we provide them with a planned expenditure program so that they know what the purposes of the unexpended funds would be. So my recommendations, and these are not in a priority order, but they are the recommendations that I have vetted with staff and also through conversations that I've had with some of our school leadership. The first one is to restore the full-time in-school suspension aides at the two small middle schools.
Thank you.
And the cost for that is $25,376. The second is that we restore the governor's summer school program. Montgomery County Public Schools does not offer an accelerated program for high school students in the summer. And this is an opportunity that's relatively cost efficient, although it is a small group of students. It would bring us back to 100% participation in all facets of the governor's school. It's one that we cut as a budget cut 2 years ago. Teacher evaluation software. Currently, we are using a software package that was designed in-house because we didn't have any money to design it any other way or purchase one. And there are many on the market that would make much more efficient use of time. Principals, when they go through classrooms, are able to actually make their observation notes right on their iPads or on their iPhones, and then this software will collect and help them analyze it. And the idea being that ultimately it would increase the principal's time to spend in direct conversation with teachers about instruction instead of having to do as much of the analysis of the data themselves as they currently have to do. This would actually be probably an exploratory process, with the purchase probably not being made until spring for implementation in the following fall, but we don't have the money other than through this particular opportunity now. Fourth thing I recommended is that we begin the feasibility study of the Christiansburg strand. I actually use this as my balancing number, and that's why it's kind of an unusual looking number, $41,454.94. That has not been, we've not solicited any bids for doing that. We haven't designed the RFP for it, but this is a good ballpark number for that kind of a project. And then the last thing that I focused on, and actually it was the first thing I focused on, but it's the last thing on the list. As you know, we are really taking a look at not only keeping our reading and writing performance up, but we are looking very closely at what else we can do to support and enhance performance of our students and the instruction that occurs in our classroom in the area of mathematics. And for those reasons, I have recommended that we add another secondary math coach in order to reduce the number of schools and teachers that each person that's currently assigned is working with. That we add an elementary instructional specialist who would also focus on the mathematics area. I've recommended a universal screening and assessment tool for K2 in mathematics. Mm-hmm. We have one in reading, which is PALS. And although I recognize that, K2 is awfully young and we do a lot of testing, somehow we have to be able to write a diagnostic for intervention with the youngest children if we're going to stop the spiral of negative scores in mathematics. And so this comes directly from the math professionals as a good intervention. And finally, expand Reflex Math subscription. It's basically a math facts software program that's very high interest and very engaging with kids. And we have the funding for Price's Fork Elementary School for this coming year. We do not have the funding for Eastern Montgomery Elementary School, and so this would expand it to Eastern Montgomery. And the recommendations total $239,144.94, which is the unencumbered carryover balance.
You forgot the feasibility study.
Pardon?
The feasibility study.
It's in.
Oh,
Yeah, I mentioned.
I missed it.
Yeah, she mentioned it. but
$41,454.94.
Yeah.
So these are my recommendations. I would certainly appreciate your input this evening so that when I bring it back for action, I can try to, have it in a form that you would support.
Board members, any comments?
Yeah, I'd like to ask, how we choose the teacher evaluation software. That's one of my questions.
I look to a committee to do that. You know, we've had an evaluation committee, Joe McAlandra, Lois, I think Guyleen maybe has been involved with the teacher observation instruments. So we engage folks. And basically, it's used by the principals in the walkthrough that they do in classrooms.
I just was curious how, and I'm really excited about the universal screening and assessment tool for K through 2. I really, really appreciate the earlier the better, and I appreciate getting back to the governor's school and also restoring the aids to the 2 smaller middle schools. I really appreciate that.
I've expressed in the past just feeling like we test our kids too much in the school system, and I would not be in favor of spending $36,000 on another test. I understand we've got to work on those scores, but I would not be for that. But I understand, I think getting more teachers in front of the kids with the math coaches is a great idea, and the instructional specialist. And I'd just like to ask, when will we know the balance of the FF&E for the new schools, to know if we have any extra money there?
Well, I can tell you that both schools currently have unexpended FF&E from their initial FF&E budget. But you won't really know what the project balance is, or if there are project savings, until you finish Auburn Middle School. Because the 3 projects are together. So it is a joint project. The 3 are one. But the principals, as we have done in the past, in addition to their FF&E money, they have discretionary funds that came from the operating budget for things that are not covered by the bond money, things that cannot be purchased. And that's been a standing practice in our schools, both at East Montgomery at Prices for and in the past. So at this point, the schools still have funds to make decisions around. Not unlimited, but they have funds.
Any other comments?
I leave the other things that you spoke about to your discretion, because I think you know what's best to suit the district. But as far as the Christiansburg feasibility study, that's my next boat. So, you know, I'm glad to see that's on there, because I understand we got to get in the new schools, but I most definitely will make sure that Christiansburg has not been forgotten, and understand with the auditorium seating and things like that, they haven't. But we've got, you know, old CMS, and we put a lot of money into that school. And I want to see the best things that can be happening for that school. And I want Christiansburg to feel like they're paying a lot of taxes in this county too. And they want to see that they're looked out for.
Anyone else? I'd like to ask a question. The purchase of and implement a universal screening and assessment tool for mathematics in grades K through 2. How much testing is done in K through 2?
Not nearly as much in K through 2 as is done in the other. The actual SOL testing program is concentrated. Excuse me. I almost never forget to do that. The actual SOL testing program is concentrated in 3 through 10, with some kids continuing in 11, 12, and they take, I think it's 39 tests over that period of time.
Right.
You know, I'd have to ask Lois to speak to what might be a standard in the K2 in a grade level. They do PALs. They do some benchmarks in K2 still. No, only PALs. Is that the only testing? The only standard testing in K2 is PALs. Okay.
They don't do benchmarking?
So it's, go ahead.
We need this badly.
At one time, we did a benchmark at the end of 2nd grade, but that was more to just get 2nd graders prepared for 3rd grade, and we dropped that because now 2nd graders do have access to things like iPads and are more computer literate. So PALS is the only universal assessment that we offer K through 2.
Thank you. Now, that's in reading, and then you're going to do it in math also. Okay. Thank you.
God.
Do you have the results of, you're doing it already in reading. Do you have the results? Can you give us a ballpark figure of how this is effective?
The PALS assessment is required by the state of Virginia.
Uh-huh.
And we assess at the beginning of the year and in the spring. And we can look at a first grader, for instance, tell which students did not meet the PALS benchmark in the fall.
Right.
Then we implement remediation. We have decided also to check on them mid-year because we want the assessment at a time that tells us how to intervene. So we will check mid-year as well. And then at the end of the year, it gives us information as to whether or not the child meets the benchmarks and might need remediation for the next year. Sometimes it helps us support retention. Sometimes it helps us support that or find out that a child probably needs to go for full assessment for special education, something of that nature. I did not mention that we also give Fountas and Pinnell testing. That is not a universal assessment. That's another reading assessment that we do periodically based on the progress of the child to say what level are you reading on now, make sure that we're moving children up in reading as they make gains so that we don't just move children to the next story. We try to keep children reading on the right instructional level.
Fountas and Pinnell, is that for every child or only for children that you've developed an intervention plan with?
It may be for any child,
Okay.
but it's not prescribed that we would give a Fountas and Pinnell in September for every child. We check on them as they're making gains, just like you would do with a basal textbook. You check periodically to make sure that they are making the gains that you think you're seeing every day.
It's my understanding that PALS really allows the teacher to focus on the needs of the student as they're moving along through the year. Is that
correct?
Pretty much, yeah, okay.
PALS is broken down. You look at
Right.
spelling, you look at phonemic awareness.
And math would be the same?
The math test would be different because obviously it's geared towards math. So you would look at a kindergartner, you're going to look at numeral recognition, the ability to count with one-to-one correspondence, that type thing.
Right.
It is what we would look at will most likely be computer-based. We did a pilot some time ago, and it took maybe a half an hour total for a student. And we used instructional specialists to help with that because they went in and did the diagnostics later to help us pinpoint which children might need remediation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I was very happy to see this, especially since we reduced our funding for screening at second grade, that this is another tool we'll be able to use to help to see if we need to look at a child for gifted and talented. So anything we can do to help these kids get where they need to be before third and fourth grade, which is the schoolhouse to jail track,
Amen.
we need to be doing it.
Thank you.
No one has spoken about ISS, but I'd like to talk about that just for a second.
I did.
The two smaller middle schools, Shawsville and Auburn, don't have the ability that the big schools have to cover their ISS the way it is right now, which means if a student gets into trouble and he's given ISS, he ends up in the principal's office, which means the principal has to be there in that office all day long with those or that student. And I think this is a great move because we don't want our principals sitting in the office being the ISS coordinators. We don't want that at all.
I think one of the powers of in-school suspension is the fact that you still have the kids in the schoolhouse.
Amen.
And if you don't have in-school suspension, then you ultimately get to out-of-school suspension.
Right.
And when the kids are not in school, they're certainly not learning anything. So that was a powerful driver for me in putting it on the list, as well as the fact that it was the #1 request of the two middle school principals.
Well, that's why I shared. I'm really grateful to see it back on there. I'm really glad.
So are we ready to move on? So I'll bring that back to you for action next time. Well, we saved a very complex subject to last. So we are preparing to implement mandated changes in the VRS. And the new hybrid plan will be the required plan for employees that we employ after January 1, 2014. You earlier received information in your board update about the plan and about how it's going to impact employees and the employer as well. And tonight, Mr. Michelandro is going to provide us a real high-level overview, because you're going to get plenty of more opportunities to get information and make some key decisions related to this. But I would remind you that it's not our choice, that we have to implement the VRS hybrid plan, and that it is going to impact the way we do business. Joe?
Thank you, Ms. Blackburn.
You're welcome.
Now I'm going to try to attempt in 5 slides what the VRS can't do in 30 slides.
Bless you.
Currently, the VRS eligible employees in Montgomery County are in plans 1 and 2 of the VRS. As of January 1, 2014, all new employees will be enrolled in this hybrid plan. Also, current employees of Plan 1 and Plan 2 will be eligible to enroll in the hybrid plan from January 1 through April 30, 2014. So what is the hybrid plan? The hybrid plan is a combination of benefits between a defined benefit plan and a defined contribution plan. The defined benefit side of it is what we normally think of as the retirement. It is that monthly benefit that you get when you retire for the rest of your life. That's the defined benefit. The defined contribution side of it is a little different for public school employees. It is a type of contribution plan where the employee and employer pay into a retirement plan, such as a 403B or 457 plan. How does this work for employees? This is where it gets a little confusing. If you look at the first line and go across the row, the required is still going to be 5%. 4% of that 5% will go into the defined benefit side, while the other 1% will go into the contribution side. So that contribution side, remember, is the 457 or 403B side. The employer, you, will pay an actuarial cost for the defined benefit side. That's the amount determined by the VRS on an annual basis. While another 1% of that will go into the defined contribution side. So what is required of the employee is that 5%. No more is required. This is where it gets the unknown, is where we have the voluntary amount. Employees can also apply an additional 4% of their salary toward the defined contribution side, and then that would have to be matched by the school board. First 1% and then the 2.5% after that. That's where the budgetary unknowns are right now. We are not sure how many people are going to take advantage of the voluntary part. So that's the unknown right now. Yet there's more. Under the new hybrid plan, employees will not be eligible for VRS disability. To bring equity among the plans, the state has required all school divisions to provide disability policy that includes short and long-term disability. Montgomery County Public Schools can join the VRS provided disability policy, which is called the Virginia Local Disability Program, or VLDP, or we can go to market to find a provider. If we go to market, we do not have to provide the long-term care part of this. It's important to note that these rates that are defined here are the rates that are that the VRS has given us. It's also important to note that this plan is not funded through any state appropriations.
Mandatory.
Okay? So what is the impact of Montgomery County Public Schools? We will have to educate any new employee, but more importantly, we have to educate our current employees that are eligible for the hybrid plan about the advantages and disadvantages of the plan. Our challenge is how are we going to provide the required disability policy in a sound financial way that minimizes budgetary impact while providing our employees with a quality disability policy. Do we take the VRS plan to the market? A decision about a disability policy has to be made prior to November 1st, 2013.
This year.
This year. The staff is currently investigating the options available to provide this service. We will be informing the board about the options and recommendations in the next few months. The changes in the disability plan will impact, I'm sorry,
Weeks.
pardon?
Instead of months, maybe weeks.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. It is condensed. The changes in the disability plan will impact current policies. As decisions are made about disability policies, we will bring you recommendations that will align the required changes with our policies. You have attachments to the agenda to provide you more information pertaining to the VRS hybrid plan and the VLD program. As updates occur, we will keep you informed. Questions?
Yes, sir. Are we talking with other school systems to see what they may or may not be doing? And is there any place that you can go to dig in and find out more information as we have questions?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We are currently talking with all regional school divisions. I've met with HR directors in Region 6 and part of Region 7 as well.
Cool.
So we're collaborating with a lot of other people who are in the same boat right now.
And is there anybody you can go who really understands if you have questions? I mean, can you, sorry. But
Yes, ma'am. The VRS has given plenty of education on this. The issue is it's still very complex and there's still a lot of unknowns right now.
So, in essence, I mean, what I'm hearing is it's so complex that it's really, really hard and nobody, I mean, there's nobody that, do you have somebody like in VRS that you can go to and say, hey, what about this, what about that?
Yes, ma'am. And we also have our own consultants as well.
Okay.
Yes,
good.
ma'am.
Okay, good.
Any other questions? I can only say that I read through this and I fell asleep twice trying to do that. It's incredibly complicated.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, sir.
And I just hope that you can dummy it down so that at least I'll understand it. 'Cause
You have a
it
s-
needs
you have
to
a few
come-
hours,
It
sir?
needs to come way down.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Joe. I
Yes,
think
ma'am.
that was a great start for talking about it, because we're going to be talking about it, and it has
Oh, it's terrible.
big repercussions across other policies as well. Mr. Ivers, we are at unfinished business.
Yes, we are. Is there any unfinished business that any of the board members wish to bring up?
I know it's late, but I'm gonna attempt this policy 5-7.5 one more time before we go home. One quick question before I attempt this is, if an employee is out for medical and they tap into the sick bank, they come back to work, they have to be out again for a week, and they tap into the sick bank again.
Dave, I'm going to let Joe answer that, because I'd have to read it to know.
As I understand your question, somebody was out for a period of time, they come back for a week, then they go out again. Could they tap into the sick bank? Yes.
Immediately?
If they've exhausted their leave again, yes.
Okay, because what I did is I tried to look at, Virginia Tech's one of the biggest employers around here. And so I tried to look and see what happens to us and, what are their policies. They require employees to exhaust all their leave. They require them to be on 10 days of unpaid leave before they tap into the leave bank. But they do have a special clause for chronic, ongoing medical conditions. So what I'm wondering is if we could change our policy to, I don't want to have anybody go on leave without pay. That's not what I'm pointing out here. But, could we put some kind of provision in there for chronic, ongoing medical conditions to assist in the case that Ms. Bond and Ms. Franklin was referring to, where you have someone who's been out for an extended period of time, but they have to be out for chemo, or maybe it's dialysis or something, so they have an ongoing chronic medical condition. Can we address those issues and then maybe go with the policy that Ms. Blackburn has suggested?
What did we do with that policy?
We failed to make
Nothing.
We
a
what?
decision. We didn't make a decision.
Okay.
It was a 3-3.
So do you have some information there that you can glean from to possibly?
Well, I don't know. I'm asking, how does everyone else feel about that?
I like that,
I don't know.
because that's the whole purpose of why the other one failed, was because of the fact of of the chronic
Right.
illness. So this fixes that.
Where would you put it? Where'd you have in mind to put it in there?
Well, in their policy, it's a special note. It says, note, a chronic ongoing medical condition such as a kidney disease or requiring dialysis, or cancer requiring chemotherapy. The employee only has to go on the leave without pay for one time. So basically what we would say is, if they come back to work and they're out due to their medical condition, not because they want to take a week vacation, but if they have to be out again due to their medical condition, that they could immediately tap into that sick bank again. Because I don't like the idea of someone being able to have, 36 days of annual leave, but still be tapping into the sick bank. This way, they would have to exhaust their leave, but if they have to be out again due to a chronic medical condition, they could tap back into the sick bank again. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, it makes some sense to me.
Sick leave bank, I'd have to ask, is there a minimum number of days that you have to take at any one time, or can people actually take a day from the sick leave bank?
Actually, after they've used their unpaid leave, they could take a day. That is a possibility. We could look at the language of Virginia Tech and come back if you'd like.
I mean, I'm not saying we copy it, but I'm just saying there's a suggestion that seems to fit most of
good
the
point, though.
concerns.
Sure.
Seems human.
Okay.
Humane.
I'll send it to you.
Okay,
The
great.
link.
Thank you.
Any other unfinished business? New business?
With all the schools going back here in a few weeks, I know we generally get enrollment numbers. Will we be doing so also again, that we can go through and see what schools have what?
We plan to do exactly what we've done in the past
Okay.
with enrollments.
Because
I think
I'd
it's,
definitely like to see some of
It's
those.
in your board prep. I can't remember which meeting it is, the 3rd or the 20th? The 3rd.
But it's there. Yeah.
I think we've got it in there, the 3rd, and then another time.
The 3rd is readiness, and the following is enrollment.
Okay, so we got the 3rd and then another time, but we'll share, yes.
Okay, thank you. I hadn't looked that far ahead.
Announcements or information?
Yeah, I was really tickled when I went by Margaret Beeks the other day, and they had the new bus loop paved, and it was the town of Blacksburg that did it, I was told, and that was part of the report tonight, and I really appreciate they're doing it, because it really needed to be done. Thank you, town of Blacksburg.
Is Monday night Auburn's open house, is that correct? Do you know?
I do not know off the top of my head. I think we have it posted on the website. I think we have it on the website.
Yeah.
Agenda preparation. You can see that on your computer that we have September 3rd, School Board Readiness Report, September 17th, Capital Projects Update, and so on down the line. Are there any questions or comments about those? Adjournment.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.